Today, we're going to talk about giving individual feedback. We ask that if you are watching on YouTube, that you give us some likes and subscribe. On that note, Jeffrey, you want to give them the lay of the land?
Sure. The University of Texas was very generous to me between veterans benefits, and then in my last year, they gave me a university continuing fellowship. And so when it was time to collect the data for my dissertation, I paid Cindy's MBA classmates, and then we ran the MBA students through an experiment where basically they were given a scenario where Jim was their direct report and his performance had been terrible. And this is the discussion of last chance. You are about to get fired. This is the final time we're going to tell you about this low performance. And in half of the scenarios, Jim said, "I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I'll do better." And in the other half, he's like, "Look, you need to know my dad had a stroke. I've been living at the hospital for the last 2 weeks. We're not sure if he's going to come out of it. But some of my performance it's because of this. I've been living at the hospital and we're not sure if my dad's going to die or not." And then we videotaped it all. And back in the old days, you had to actually pay for transcription. I know that seems antiquated, but we had everything transcribed. And we counted how often people said positive things and how often they said negative things, because the focus of the dissertation was on dilution of feedback. The basic premise of my dissertation was we do not give feedback enough, even though we could, both at work and at home. We're in the position with the people we work with to observe how they're actually doing. But most of the time we don't give the feedback. And then when we do, because we perceive the social pressure in it, we dilute it. And that's in fact what we found in the experiment. When I forced them to give the feedback, they still diluted it. And so the kind of first plank for our discussion about giving negative feedback is it actually has the potential to do an enormous amount of good. But most of us overemphasize the social awkwardness. We're overly concerned with it.
Well, actually, organizations promote the dilution. Like this language of care that we hear a lot about, like they're saying, basically do a sandwich.
Yes. Yeah, the old sandwich method, which
everybody knows the sandwich method. So
bad, good, say something good, say something bad, say something good.
Right. And when, generally speaking, when it's happening to you, which then makes it seem
right,
all the good stuff disingenuous, or it's what you're talking about, which you don't pick up on it. And you walk out of the room going, yeah, they really like me because they heard more good than bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm just saying that,
yeah.
It's not just the nervousness that happens. And I think that happens to
fairly
everybody.
Universally. Yes.
Right. I mean, if you care about these people,
that's right.
There's going to be there's a level of risk here with the relationships when you give feedback. And so, there's always a little bit of nervousness, and then you're trying to make it softer and you care about them and you don't really want to hurt them. You just want things straightened out. So that happens naturally. But on top of that, organizations are actually instructing people, use the sandwich. And that's a mistake.
The reason that is a mistake is that, and you can run your own experiment on this, but the studies are there. We can put a link to these studies. People always want the bad news first. But because of some of these pressures that the social pressure, and because occasionally we're given advice to soften the bad with some good, we often mistakenly think people want the good news. Next time you have anybody in the room, ask them, "Hey, I got good news and bad news. Which do you want first?" And people will always, not sometimes, not half the time, 60%, they will always tell you they want the bad news first.
Well, it's because you can't really enjoy the good news while you're waiting for the bad news. Yeah. As soon as there's bad news coming, you're in a hyper alert phase where you're ready to defend yourself, basically.
Yeah, we'll use the terminology from Caroline Webb. She wrote one of the best books about basically grabbing all the social science together about peak performance into a book called How to Have a Good Day.
That was a good book.
Yeah, excellent book. And so she used the terminology of discovery mode when you're open, like right now, you and I, we're talking. I have some things to say, you add some things, and we're paying attention to each other and trying to, kind of make sense of a conversation. And a lot of times when you're in discovery mode, you're putting two heads together, you don't always agree on everything, but you're trying to arrive at a solution or an understanding. And then there's defensive mode when you're, as you mentioned, when somebody says, hey, I have good news and bad news for you. Well, they're not hearing the good news if you start with that because they're worried or they're defensive about what's the bad. This is in the scenario we talk about most on this podcast, work. There's managers talking to direct reports. And so there's pressure here. This is my boss giving me feedback. Doesn't have to be the boss, but a lot of times it's my boss and they're giving me feedback and they say they have good news and bad news. Well, they're starting with the good. I don't care about the good because I'm on alert. Right. I'm in defensive mode.
Like how bad is the bad?
That's right. What's happening? What's actually happening in this conversation? And so Cindy's point about this, the sandwich method, give them something good, then give them the bad, and then give them something good to finish with. We don't recommend that for when you have to deliver negative feedback or bad news because it leads to, first, them not listening to the good, so it's irrelevant. Yeah, I'm just waiting for you to get on with the bull and give me the meat, right? Sandwich, so to speak. Give me the meat, don't give me the buns. And then you're also run the risk of, if you put on too much of all the good, that people don't actually gather what you're saying. In my dissertation, we found that people, when they would give the negative feedback in both conditions, but especially when the subordinates of a father was in the hospital, they would give so much positive that the subordinate, we had our actor actually do evaluations every time after, that they would have a hard time deciding what the main message was from the person in the experiment. So we, every time we had the actor actually say, here's what the main point was. Here's what I took away from this. And it was much harder for the person in the scenario to figure out what the other person was saying as they piled on all of the, I'm so sorry about your dad. I'm glad you're taking care of him. You've been a good worker before. You've really got a lot of work. Doesn't mean you can't say some of that. But if the main point is your performance has been so far below the standard for the last 2 weeks, and here's the example, that if you don't improve it, the next time we talk, you're going to get fired. And in iteration after iteration of this, my lab experiment, and this is consistent with the research, the person getting that message didn't know what they were saying when they piled on too much of the sandwich, so to speak. And so that's kind of the first plank, is we are overly concerned with the awkwardness or the relational stress that we'll put on another person and our relationship with them when we give them negative feedback. Most of our relationships where we have something meaningful to tell another person can handle it. But when you're giving that feedback, it needs to be clear and unadorned, or not adorned with a lot of positives all around it. Because people either aren't paying attention to that, or if they begin to relax and take that in, they're missing your main message.